I'm Holly Dietz, and these are my weird ideas. This is episode 14, where we talk about AI tools and filmmaking. I am really happy to have Anthony Bluemmel back as my guest today. If you'll remember, Anthony's a filmmaker. He has been with us before. We talked about artists and artisans. Today, we're going to talk about AI tools. So, Anthony, what are you using? How are you using them?
Sure, happy to be back. Excited for round two here.
Yeah.
Um, Excited to talk about some AI tools. I think we had kind of spoken before we started here, but the advancement of AI filmmaking tools, I think, is going to take down the barrier to entry for a lot of people looking to get into filmmaking. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think, and I hope you'll see a lot of newcomers to filmmaking, making shorts, entering competitions, a lot of stuff on YouTube and Vimeo. Because I think a lot of these tools that we're going to talk about today are going to really change the life of some of these folks looking to get into film. But yeah, to start off, as a writer, I'm always looking for ways to make getting ideas on the paper easier. From last episode, sometimes it can be very difficult for me to take pen to paper, even though I may have something cool I'm thinking of.
Right.
Um, so, two kind of tools I've been playing with are one is plot.ai. I don't know if you've heard of this. Um,
Yes.
yeah, plot dot, and then there's storyprism dot io as well.
Oh, I have not heard of that one. Okay. And also, just so you know, I'm going to list all of these tools in the description. So
Perfect.
just getting that out of the
Uh,
way.
I've played with and been in plot dot a little more than I have storyprism, but they kind of fundamentally seem to do very similar things. But
Okay.
like plot dot specifically, I really like because what it does is, now I will preface this by saying I wouldn't put all of your data or your information in here, and story information, not personal information, into this and expect Pulp Fiction. Not going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
What I think, and I that it does well, and what it can do for people, and especially for writers, obviously, or anyone getting into this, is kind of get all of your ideas that are floating around on different scraps of paper in your notes apps in your head, um, and kind of condense it down into a way that you can do something with it, which I think is fundamentally what is important in terms of writing. It's like, how can I take the idea and get it to a point where I can do something with it? Um,
Okay.
and
And
so,
is this particular to, or is this are these two tools you're talking about? Do they work specifically for filmmaking, or can they help anyone writing a story in any medium?
great question. These specifically are more for filmmaking, screenwriting.
Okay. All
So
right.
the output um, of, say, what you get from plot dot, um, ultimately would be a screenplay. Now,
Okay.
saying that, what it does for you is it allows you to um, take all of your story beats, all of your characters, and put them in one spot, and then it can kind of organize everything for you. So I think people should think of this not as a tool to get a screenplay, which is what it does, sure, but it won't be good, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think point A would be, it allows you to take all of those ideas that you have, input them in, and then get something back where you can take that thing and use it. So my goal for using this, for instance, is because it is difficult for me to get that first, say, draft on paper. What the beauty of plot dot is because I prepare beforehand. So I know my characters, I know my genre, I know what my theme is. I kind of know what my acts are, and the story beats that I want in all of those acts are going to be. And I can plug all of those in here, and then it will spit out to me a screenplay. Um, and like I said, it's not going to be good, but what it
Okay.
does is it gives you a vomit draft, which is like step one of writing a screenplay, I
Okay.
think. Where
Would it be good for someone who doesn't even know what it what isn't what a like I don't know what a screenplay consists of because I've not been to film school and I haven't studied this. If I took one of my stories, let's say that I had written, would it work that way, or do you have to have some sort of knowledge to even get started?
Knowledge in terms of just like the structure of a screenplay,
Yes,
or
or what?
okay.
Yes, what? Because I know I when I have read screenplays, I've always been amazed at how they're structured and what's there and really and what's not there. It's very interesting to me. And if I had to come up with one on my own, no, there's just, there's no way. But would it help with that, or do I need some fundamental understanding of what constitutes a screenplay?
I think it would help with that. And I think
Okay.
if you've ever like read a screenplay, like I would say you're already ahead of the game. I Reading a screenplay is kind of critical to understanding screenwriting, because like much like reading literature, like you kind of get a feel of what a particular writer likes and like sort of the nuances of what they do, and how they approach certain things. And a big thing. I know someone who's reading for a festival right now, and montages are like the bane of of a reader's existence, right? Because
Yeah.
not everybody can do it, and it has to be very specific and like it because it takes away from what you're trying to do.
Okay.
And so I think a reading screenplays is going to be like kind of number one. So like I would say you're probably ahead of the game because you've at least read one. Um,
Okay.
and the way like plot dot structures everything that you're giving to it is going to spit you out something that you've seen before,
Okay.
if you've read one. Um, so what it will do is like, so if you're on the fence of like, I know story, like I know what I want, I know my characters, I know, the acts, and kind of the act structure that I want to follow. What it will do is give you basically that whole screenplay theoretically formatted pretty correctly, right? So you kind of know what it's going to look like, and then, um, and this is why I think it's like a very useful tool for any writer, is that vomit draft is such a hurdle to get over as a writer. Because once you get there, and the script's probably going to be terrible, whatever plot doc gives you, and that's
Yeah.
perfectly fine. But what you can do is now you can go page by page and then put yourself into it. It's kind of pre-structured for you. It's kind of the story that you want to some extent. Um, but then you can just put your flair on it and you basically rewrite the whole thing. But instead of staring at a blank sheet of paper,
Right.
or a final draft document that has nothing on it, you now have a bunch of stuff to work with. And I think that's what the key here is. It's not a replacement for a writer, but a tool to make it more efficient, to make you a little faster, right? Because now
Yeah.
you have something on the page, and that is incredibly
Right.
difficult to do.
This reminds me of when I very first started using Jasper when it was long ago when it was called Jarvis. And you just sort of put something in that you had to write content for, and then it would give you the content. And it sucked. It was
Hmm.
terrible. But it got you over that first hurdle. It's like, oh, the page has stuff on it. Now I can do something. So this makes perfect sense to me in this context. Okay, continue.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for a lot of like new writers, for instance, like getting the structure of a screenplay down is difficult. There's no, I don't know if there's a wrong way to write a screenplay, but there's not. Um, what am I trying
Really,
to
there are
say
no
here?
are there there's no parameters that let's say I once again I'm going to write a screenplay and I don't know what I'm doing and I kind of halfway do it, but I don't do it correctly and I try and get someone to look at it. Aren't there certain things that I need to have in there, and then they're going to be like, you have no idea what you're doing, goodbye?
Yeah, so I think what I was looking for is like norms, right?
Okay.
There's not necessarily a wrong way, but there are certain norms that you're going to want to make sure that you're kind of meeting. and this changes like with your success as a filmmaker, right, or as a writer. To go
Okay.
back on the montage thing, as a new writer, you're going to want to avoid a montage. um,
Okay.
I'm hating on montages right now, but it's I would say unless you have the clout to pull it off, avoid it, right? Make sure,
Right.
focus on your
Yep.
character and whatnot. And I say that like having watched Saltburn recently. I laugh because that movie opens with a montage. Um, that's also Emerald Fennell, and then like all of us are not Emerald Fennell, so
Right.
we can't do that yet. Um, but I think ultimately what Plot Dot can do for you, for an established writer or a new writer, is get you the vomit draft that is like so incredibly difficult to get. And you
Okay.
can spend. I think I kind of went through a test of like the short that the animated short that I'd written. I went through a test and kind of plugged everything in, right? And and I'm not saying I'm a fantastic Oscar winning writer. I'm better than Plot Dot. um, but it was
You are a
interesting
good
because
writer, though. I can attest
thank
to that.
you.
I'm just going to throw my two
Um,
cents in there.
but I can tell you what it did was it basically got me what took me a few weeks to get. It gave me in 45 minutes.
Oh
But
wow.
yeah, but the key takeaway is you kind of have to know what your story is. You have to know your characters. You have to know your
Okay.
theme. You kind of have to know like what your first act turn or your first act turn is and your second act turn is. You have to know what your climax is, what the resolution is. You kind of have to
You
know
see,
who.
you're going back and making my point from the other episode we did. Just some chump off the street, meaning me, can't just open Plot Dot and make it work for them.
But there's a
I have to
secret.
be decent to begin with, right?
Yes and no. There's
Okay.
also a feature, right? So say that you have no freaking clue. Like you have a log line, so and your log line is whatever it may be.
Okay.
Let me look up like a good log line,
Yeah,
and then
give us a good log line because there are people listening who don't even know what that is.
so yeah, log line tells you your main character, what their wants and needs are, and then what they're gonna have to go through to get there.
Okay.
Um, it's essentially, and it's condensed to basically a single sentence. It's an elevator pitch to some extent.
Okay.
Um, but so let me see if I can find me a good log line for you. Um, here's one that whose masterclass is offering me this one because I don't know any of these off the top of my head. Um, when a wannabe child beauty queen learns that a spot has opened up in the Little Miss Sunshine pageant, she convinces her dysfunctional family to make the cross country trek, despite her father's and society's protestations that she may not have what it takes to win. So that's obviously
Oh,
Little Miss Sunshine. So that basically kind of tells you what the whole movie is, right?
yeah.
In a
Okay.
single
Awesome.
sentence.
Yep.
And so what can do on Plot Dot is on their very first section, you can put your genre in. So you want to write a family drama about, I don't know, the death of a loved one. We'll make it morose.
Okay.
Your audience is, let's say, middle aged, and then you know what your title is, and now you have your log line. That is the work that you've done.
Okay.
You can just tell, you can submit that, and then you can just tell Plot Dot to build the whole thing. You just run through all the stuff that they're talking about, and just click the little button that says Unleash Ideas, and let them build it for you, or let it build it for you.
Right.
And then
And we're
you'll
still
get
talking about vomit at this point. This is nothing good.
correct. I I don't know if it ever will be good.
And that's I don't think that's the point though, right? I mean, I don't think it should be the point.
No, it shouldn't. To me, like as a filmmaker, I would say AI should be viewed as a tool to make life easier for you, to make
Yeah.
you better, and to make you more efficient. I think that's where some of the sort of misconception is around like AI in filmmaking.
I think you just summed up AI in general because the way I see it, that's what it should be for, full stop. To do
Yeah.
the things that are repetitive and part of the drudgery or that keep us from taking the next step. The
Mhm.
things those are the things that I think AI we should embrace happily and say, yes, no longer do I have to worry about that. But yeah, the rest of it, yeah. Okay, so continue. So got plot dot and
Yep.
what was the name
Uh,
of the other one?
it was
Okay.
storyprism.io. And that
And it,
fundamentally kind of does the same thing. But
okay.
ultimately, for anyone who's listening who's like, I want to be a screenwriter now. First of all, God help your soul. It's hard.
Well, like
Um,
first of all, shouldn't your first question be, and I don't mean to be harsh here, but the first question should be, are, are you a decent writer? Do you enjoy writing? I mean, really, isn't that sort of
I would
part of the
say,
conversation?
do you enjoy it? Um,
Yeah.
like no one is born a good writer. I think that's a key takeaway is, and this is like why I don't think AI is going to take over like writing a screenplay, because everything that you go through as a child and as your teen years and early adult and so on and so forth are all building who you are, and like that is what will come on the page. So even you know I have like an idea I was working on. I was like a blasphemous comedy, right?
Ah,
I'm
my
not a
favorite.
Yes, I'm not a demon to my knowledge. I'm also not an angel. I'm also
Right.
not like the Antichrist. I mean, some may argue otherwise. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I'm not, right?
Yeah.
But like my experiences of like growing up Catholic and going to like an all boys Catholic school for 2 years, and like society and like how like kind of religiously crazy we've become. All of those like kind of filled into like me as a person then wanting to make this idea, right? AI didn't go to an all boys Catholic school for 2 years, and I feel very like happy for AI that they didn't have to go through that. Um,
Right.
but it's be like that experience is like kind of what also helped craft like that particular idea. So I would say it's not of are you good at writing, it's do you want to write or do you like writing?
Okay.
Because I think writing can be learned. Like even going from like not going into film school and going into film school, like the change in, and like you have like read stuff I think I've written before film school.
Yeah.
And I can tell you like reading old material that I've written like pre and post film school are vastly different. I'm not saying I recommend going to film school, but I can say like what it did was it forced me to like look at it differently and get different perspectives from people who have been in it and who have written and who have like actually like knowledge of how to be successful as a writer. And all of those made me better, right? And
No, I will
so
agree with that. The having read your work pre and post, it is completely different. And I mean, I stand by the fact that you are a really good writer, but post film school, even better. Like, yeah.
yeah, and so I think that I just illustrates the point of like you don't have to be a good writer now, right, to want to start.
Okay.
You can like and you have a desire to do it, um, and then ultimately, like the only way to get better at it is to do it. Like and
Yeah.
like myself and like many other writers, like it's gonna be bad for a long time, but like over time, it'll continuously get better. Like not all of us are, Richard Kelly who writes Donnie Darko over the weekend, right?
Hmm.
Um, that'd be awesome, but that is a absolute rarity that hardly ever happens.
Yeah.
So it's very much of like you continue to do it and get better. But I think what plot dot is going to kind of speed that up a little bit. You're going to have to continue to do it. And what I would recommend is when it spits out that vomit draft, you go page by page and you change everything it's written and you kind of put yourself into it. And then read that, see how it differs from the original vomit draft that it gave you, put it away, and then try something new. And then maybe on the next one, just use plot dot as a way to outline and organize your idea, right? And
Okay.
then maybe you try to write it out on your own to start with, instead of having plot dot AI spit it out. So
Okay.
I think ultimately it's a tool to make life easier, and to just get that vomit draft out and get something on the
Okay.
paper. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say you have that. Then what? Let's say you've gone from nothing to vomit draft to you've gone through your entire vomit draft and you have something that you sort of like. Do you have other tools that help you do the next step, or what what do you do?
For the next step would be actually find another human being to read it, because that's where you're going to get, and then kind of stepping away from the AI side of it.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to get a lot of valuable information back. Because you're going to see how people react, and then they'll tell you, "Oh, this character is great, but like something here," or "This is a huge plot hole that you need to fix," that you're just not going to see just because you've been entrenched in getting it done. Um,
Right.
so you won't see, like, you probably won't utilize plot dot again after that vomit draft,
Okay.
um, in my opinion. But I would use it again as a tool to outline. Like, so in theory, after that first attempt, you vomit and then you edit it and you have your fresh new draft. Um, you let someone read it, you get your feedback, and then you start on the next thing. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
And then let's say that you've got that down. You know you like what you have, and you also want to make the film. You're not just writing the screenplay. You want to actually do the camera work.
sure.
How has
Yep.
that changed? How tell us your thoughts on being a new filmmaker these days, and what are your options?
Yeah, so I know for me, it was shorts. In school, we did a web series. Um, Granted, I was in school, so it's a little different, but small crew.
Hmm.
You can find a camera. Most smartphones now are not cinema grade, but like you can easily get away with making a very good looking short film or web series or whatever on an
Right,
iPhone, for instance.
right, and people have done it, even
Yep.
films.
Yeah, it was shoot.
Tangerine.
Yes, Tangerine was done on iPhone, and then a Steven Soderbergh movie was done on it. I cannot remember the name of it right now. I think Claire Foy was in it. Um,
We'll think of
but
it.
yeah, anyway, I digress. Yes, it can be done. So I would start kind of with a short, like, because it's going to be much easier for someone to film 5 pages than it is going to film a 90-page feature. Um,
Right.
but then that would, to briefly touch back on the script writing process, if you get it and it's 90 pages, right? That's what plot doc gave you. A great exercise would be, okay, how do I turn this into 10 pages and make a short? And that
Okay.
way, yep. So this is more of a personal exercise, not something that an AI tool is going to help you with, but um, because at that point you're going to kind of you're you're getting into the craft of it, and you're going through it and saying, how can I condense this entire story to 10 pages? Is going to be huge, because then you're going to be able to make something with it, right? I'm not saying that you couldn't go make a feature like right off the bat, like people have done it. But what can do is I can take this 90-page script, I can find a way to make it 10 pages, I can go out and shoot it, and now it comes off as a proof of concept, right? So now you can use it as a proof of concept. It's like, this is what something could be. Now imagine if you gave me 90 pages to do it. Um,
Okay. Okay.
and then maybe, in a perfect way, I want to preface, it's probably not going to happen with the first thing you ever do. But if you keep doing it, like, people catch on and you put yourself out there, and big things can happen. But um, yeah, so let's say you get it to 10 pages and now you have something that you can shoot. So first and foremost, like, where to find people? I mean, Facebook, like Reddit, where you can find like filmmakers who are wanting to make stuff.
Okay.
Um, those are big. Like Facebook groups are big. Like the filmmaking subreddit is big. I mean, Reddit has its problems. Are there like filmmaking elitists in there? Yes, like there are everywhere.
No,
Uh,
really? In Reddit? No,
Unbelievable. I
can't
know it's
believe it.
crazy, but
No. I'm still
but
look,
you,
I'm still getting over the fact that there are Facebook groups for this. I
yeah,
seriously, that surprises me, but I mean, hey, that's great.
yeah, just like go on Facebook wherever you are located and type in like filmmaking in, I don't know,
Peoria.
sure, and then you'll probably find some groups about people who are trying to make films.
Okay.
People are making stuff everywhere. Um, and then find some people, and then it may be an instance where like someone's making something and it's not going to be your thing, but they're looking for someone. And I would say go do it, because that experience is going to be beneficial. And then you network, and then the next thing you're like, hey, I have a 10-page short I want to film, and then you kind of snowball it from there. But let's assume all of that has happened for you, and you have, let's say, a small scene in your 10 pages that requires like a VFX, for instance.
Okay.
Um, and this is why I'm excited about like Pika, for instance. What's cool, or what I like about Pika, is the ability change, to highlight an area and change something in it, right? And
Right.
without having fully utilized Pika, I don't know. I don't want to say this is capable, and then someone go and try and it's not capable yet. But what I'm anticipating from everything that I've seen is um, the ability to do like small level VFX on the fly.
Yeah.
Um,
From
it's
from what I understand, this is the case. Yes.
Yeah. So like I consider, for example, where I went to school, their student productions are like massive, like crazily massive.
Right.
Doesn't need to be that way. But like when I came into school, there was a short that they had done that takes place like in space or on a different planet. And they built a physical set for the ship, right? Um, but instead of having to do a bunch of VFX work, like you can go into MidJourney right now, or you can go into like Runway, or I think even Stable Diffusion, and say, give me like a shot in space, right? And then you have a
Right.
pretty usable shot of space that you can kind of plug into the set that you've made. Um, so I think what it's going to do is make life easier for that filmmaker who they just started. They got to a point where it's like, I have a really good 10-page short. Um, it just has this one shot, but the shot is like essential to making this thing like what it needs to be.
Yeah.
Um, what all of these tools are going to do is allow you to do that without having to have a budget of like $50,000. Let's say it's a small shot, but like it's going to be that's expensive.
Yeah.
But and that's the beauty. And I say Pika because, to my knowledge, they're the only ones at the moment where you can input video and have it altered. So that's why I like it, because I'm working on something now with a writer where there is a shot of a house burning, and this is going to be a short, and I don't want to have to find money to set a house on fire,
Right.
or to build a miniature and light it on fire. But if Pika, for instance, is a tool where I can take some shot footage, somewhat static for the most part, and then plug that into Pika, and then ask it to make it on fire,
Right.
theoretically, and it does it, and then I can kind of, in the planning and the shot planning of making sure, like when we look at it on fire, like all the shots are so it doesn't look janky, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that is Pika's free, to my knowledge, at the moment.
Yeah. At the
So
moment, it is. Yeah.
so you're telling me like I've probably saved at least a couple $1,000s to get a shot of a house on fire. And granted, you also have to look at that this is a short film, right?
Yeah.
Short films are typically low budget, so it's not going to need to be a Nolan level fire, right? You need it because it's a story beat, right? It's
Right.
essential to what's happening in the story. And even if it looks rough, I mean, like, it's fine because it does what it needs to do. And I think the beauty is, imagine, oh gosh, what is Birdemic? I think, we've talked about.
Ah, yes,
Like,
my
imagine
favorite.
if like this stuff was around when Birdemic was made,
He
or
wouldn't have used it. He wouldn't have
not
used it.
true. But
But you
there's
know what? I will reference though Lunopolis, my
Hmm,
favorite low budget sci-fi movie. When I think about what Lunopolis could be today, I'm not sure if these tools would make it better. I don't think you can improve upon Lunopolis. And people can at me at this. I don't care. I will stand for Lunopolis forever. But yeah, there's a case to be made for would it have been slightly better with a slightly larger budget for some effects?
sure.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. Anyway, I just wanted to talk
Um,
about Linopolis. Let's just be honest.
sure.
Okay, so thank you for letting me do that.
Absolutely. But yeah, so like those super low budget stuff that needed VFX, like I think this is what it's gonna do is make life easier for them, and it's gonna improve
Okay,
the quality a bit. Um, to touch on the Birdemic thing, someone had sent me. It was called Birds Aren't Real, and it was a short film,
yeah,
basically using this is like I think we spoke about this in the last episode, but basically casted like Michael Shannon, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Timothy Chalamet in this fake trailer for something called Birds Aren't Real. Um, and it was all AI generated, right?
yeah,
But it's a great example of another mechanism which you can use as a filmmaker of using these tools and getting familiar to where you can build out a trailer for something you have written. So if you're going into a pitch, right? Um, this is an opportunity to be able to create something where you can visualize your story for someone you're pitching to,
right.
um, as opposed to kind of just going in with concept art or going on Canva and finding stuff that is close enough. um,
Yeah, I mean that seems infinitely better to me. I mean, I don't know
mhm.
anything about it, but if I'm listening to pitches all day, I'm assuming that's someone's job to do that, and someone has an actual something to show me like that. I mean, I guess unless it's just hot garbage.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't just go in there and say do this. Like you need to go in there and they give you what 4 seconds, maybe 8 seconds max if you extend it. But
Yeah,
so you're gonna have to be very deliberate and take your time and get the shots that you want and then edit it. But this is basically just you at your computer and you're not hiring someone to do this, or you're not hiring a crew to go out and shoot a pseudo trailer to do a pitch. This is something that will take some time, sure, but it's going to be super low cost, if not zero cost.
yeah.
But I think,
I'm all
yeah,
for that, obviously.
yeah, and I think these are like the benefits that I think are not highlighted in what the media, especially entertainment media, shares. It's very much AI is doom and gloom for the industry, but I think if you're smart and you kind of look past that and you go and look at the tools available, you'll see that what it's doing, at least now, I can't predict the future, but it is opening the door to do a lot of things that used to cost a lot of money. And I think it's going to
Right.
give like new filmmakers, even established filmmakers, like you can be an established filmmaker and still be struggling. Is
Oh, absolutely. I think the
most of
strike
them are.
has
Yeah.
make that abundantly clear.
But I think yeah, I think that's what it's going to do is, and what it can do, I think is what it is doing right now is providing the tools, which provide the ability to get stuff made. I think that's really what's important at the end of the day is just getting stuff made. And if you can take and go from, plot dot to shooting 10 pages and then using like Pika to give yourself that shot, or maybe you didn't, and another thing is like you can change camera angle and aspect ratio and everything in there. Um, so all of these tools are at the disposal to make something, um, or to make filmmaking easier in a sense of easier in that it's easier to get it done.
Right.
Right. And I
I
think
also
that's
like
what's
the
important.
idea talking about new filmmakers, in general, but not just that, but people who maybe have started in the industry and maybe what they want to make, and I make no judgment here, Maybe what they want to make, they're being told either no one wants to see it or no one's going to back that. There's no money for the subject matter or whatever it is. Maybe this opens a door for people to make things that traditionally have been thought of as, well, no one's going to watch that. And it's like, well, if the budget needed for that is $1,000 instead of $1 million, maybe people will watch it. I don't know. That's also just a thought. Barriers to entry being broken down are always a good thing in my book.
Yes, I agree. And I think these tools are going to do that, not take a job away. I think it's just going to give even more opportunity to people who want to be filmmakers and who want to make stuff.
Yeah. I think going back to talking about using uh, Jasper when it was Jarvis, and how a lot of folks in the content writing world, the marketing world, were just horrified by this. It's like, well, now anyone can just write anything. And it's like, you and I both know that's just not true.
Yeah.
It's not true. And there still has to be some fundamental something behind the tool that's being used. Maybe we'll get to the point where the tool writes the stuff using another tool, and I don't know. I probably won't be alive then, but at this point, I think that you're right, that these tools open more doors and provide more opportunities than the opposite. For
Yeah,
now,
and like,
anyway.
yeah, this won't replace the VFX, but what it
Right.
does is
Yeah.
it gives the opportunity to someone who couldn't afford it to put it in their film. Um,
Right.
like
Right.
I don't want to displace artists, and I think, especially animation, being an animation, like I love animators, I love artists. I think I love the animated medium. Um, I would never want them replaced. There's too much nuance in it that I don't think AI is capable of. Um, but I think if we view like this as a tool to make it better or to make them more efficient, to make their lives easier as animators, because they're also overworked and underpaid, which is a huge problem. So if they
Yeah.
can sort of take these tools and leverage them to make their lives easier and better and eventually earn more money and make projects they want to make, I think that is what we should be going for, not to be replaced, which some um, executives would like. So I think it's really important as creators that we see the benefit of these things as tools to make us better and to make our work more efficient, as opposed to something to replace us. And I think, I think you would agree with this. Being aware of all of this stuff that's going on and at least dabbling in it is going to set you apart as well, because then you can go in and you can talk the talk, and then you can make your argument for why, like, it's like actually me, the human being, that needs to do this, because like AI is not capable of ABC.
Right. 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 And I will say this: over the past few years of just whatever tools are being used in movies or whatever, it really makes me nostalgic for the actual creature builders of old,
Mm-hmm.
the actual, before all of this was CGI. I mean, there's a huge difference. You can tell a difference, and there's something about it, even when the creatures are jank or even to the point of being hilarious. There's something about that I don't think you can ever really replace with
Yeah.
digital
Yep.
representations of that.
Um, yeah, I agree with that. I'm not to go on a tangent, but a brief one maybe. Um, I'd recently watched the newest Japanese Godzilla minus one.
Okay.
First of all, 10 out of 10. Can't find fault. Like, top movie of the year for me.
Okay.
Um, and I think what's awesome about it is, like, in looking from a filmmaking perspective, is I think the visual effects in this movie put to shame like anything like Marvel or DC has done in at least the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Um, and this movie was made for $15 million, right?
Really?
15 million. Yep. Um,
Wow.
and like the director was also the visual effects lead, which is insane to me as well. It's so much work. But what it did was make his vision cohesive across all elements of the film.
Okay.
Um, but I believe that was also a mix of sort of computer generated and some actual like model building.
Okay.
But and not to dive into story and blah blah blah, but I think it's interesting because I saw that, and then the latest trailer for the American Godzilla sequel coming out, Godzilla and Kong, and the difference in quality between the two. I'm not talking specifically like CG animation and whatnot, but of like storytelling and like the Godzilla minus one was like strong in character, but also strong in like Godzilla, which is the name of the movie, which I
Yeah.
think is lacking in the American version. It was like post-war Japan. It was like survivor's guilt and PTSD, and then like a hope for the future and to make the future better for like the youth, so they don't have to do what just happened. And like, um, and these like big touch points that like resonate throughout the film are like super interesting compared to like what is happening on the American side of Godzilla things. But in specifically like to the visual effects, like it was like that older style of like Godzilla where it's like he's this massive hulking creature, but he's slow. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like there's like an authenticness to it because like that thing's not going to be sprinting. But then in the trailer for the American one, like he's running, and it's just so there's just
That makes no
like
sense. Yeah.
where like they kind of understand the character and how it functions, right?
Yeah.
Of like who Godzilla is. But yeah, it's just, and I'd like to kind of wrap that back to what we were talking about is like whenever you can watch it, highly recommend you watch it.
I am. You've already sold me on it. If you recommend something like that in that way to me, I trust you. So
Perfect.
I'm gonna be watching it.
But yeah, I mean, it was like effects that were fantastic. Now there was some stuff where you can see it. And it's like it's not a big deal because the film as a whole is brilliant.
Yeah.
Um, but the fact that like it was $15 million and to accomplish what they accomplished, and like there's a specific scene in there where like Godzilla uses his like they call it a heat ray, I believe, or his atomic breath. But I will
Okay.
stand by. It was one of, if not like the coolest sequence of destruction I have ever seen in cinema.
Ooh.
Like
Okay.
I had goosebumps, and like the entire I was in the theater actually for this in the IMAX, and like you just hear the whole theater, everyone's like, "Holy shit!" Like all in unison. Um,
Wow. See, now that's you get a shared experience of joy, and that's worth. I mean, it's worth way more than what you paid for the ticket, in my opinion.
no, I agree, and the tickets were expensive, but
Of course they were.
they were. But like that was like such an amazing thing to experience in full. And granted, like you also have to appreciate like this is a Japanese film that is subtitled. In my
Right.
theater, my IMAX theater was sold out. Like everybody was filling a seat. Um, and it goes to show, and I think the big takeaway of here is like if you can find a way to understand story and to tell a good story, like it doesn't have to be some experimental, like groundbreaking, like whoa, holy shit, I can't believe this has never been done thing. If you simply know how to tell a story,
Yep.
people will watch it. And I think
Yep.
that's the big takeaway. All of these tools that we talk about are just elements for you to be able to get there. And I
Yes.
think that's what you should take away from this.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I think that's very well said, and I absolutely agree with that. And if anyone is listening to this who is thinking about dabbling in filmmaking, storytelling, any of this, first of all, just do it. Just
Yes.
start doing it, but know that this is not 1992, and you don't have to go out and buy a huge expensive camera and know all these people and spend a bunch of money and etc. Just do it because there are tools. And I think by this time next year there will be even more tools and it will be even more accessible. So
Absolutely.
start writing, and if you find that you enjoy it, keep doing it every
Yep.
day, right? Every day.
Write a little take 30 minutes a day. As long as you
Yeah,
keep doing it,
as
like
long as you
you'll
do it.
get better.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Dude, thanks for coming back and doing another episode. This was great, and I'm going to make you do it again sometime.
I will always talk film, and
I
being in the
know it's
AI space now, I will talk AI and film and the conjunction of both whenever you want.
Yeah, we'll think of another weird subject for next time. But this is great, and for those of you who have stayed with us this whole episode, I want you to know how much I appreciate it, and it means so much. So wherever you are, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, you have a good one, and we will see you next time.